All right, I hope everyone's doing well. I initially was doing this landscape view and I wasn't able to see myself, and so I wanted to restart this again. But thank you for joining me again today. I did a broadcast yesterday and I was so excited I wanted to go ahead and continue it on today because I had a lot of fun yesterday. And what we're going to be talking about is how to conquer your fear of public speaking and captivate your audience with confidence. So that's what we're going to be looking at. And today we're really going to continue on. We're going to continue on with this series. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, when I get started in the next few seconds, I'm going to ask you to hold your questions not until the end. I'm going to have some parts in the middle where you can ask me your questions. Feel free to make all the comments that you like, but hold your questions because I really want to get to them during the broadcast and at the end. So I'll give you some time during this broadcast to ask your questions, but again, feel free to make whatever statements you'd like to make, as long as they're relevant, of course. But thank you very much for joining me. I'm testing out different times, and I will become more consistent as I figure out when the best times are to do this. And this series will be about conquering your fear of public speaking. The series will also be about how you can learn to speak more clearly and more confidently live. Because I know a lot of you that are listening have jobs and you have opportunities to speak, to do presentations at work, to do live presentations. And sometimes that frightens you, that scares you. Or sometimes you do it and you just don't do as well as you would like to do for various reasons. And public speaking fear is something that many people struggle with, and there is something that you can do about it. And as soon as we're done with this little portion of this series, which has to do with conquering your fear, captivating your audience, there's a couple of items that I said that I would cover, and we'll go over those in just a few minutes. I'm going to be starting a new series, and I'll tell you what that is. I'm very, very excited about it, and it has to do with using Periscope. And I want to thank my good friend Stephanie McNeil-Brown at Grow Women for actually giving me this idea. She's introduced me to a lot of emerging technologies, and this has been one of them. I remember years ago I started out in podcasting. I jumped into video. I wrote an iBook. Since then, I've really focused on using YouTube to build my business. And now I have a full-time online coaching business that I developed on YouTube. I have more than 200 and some videos, 500,000 views, in a very, very small niche, actually. So thank you, Stephanie McNeil-Brown. And today, we are going to continue with this series, and then I'm going to let you know again at the end what the new series will be that has to do with Periscope. So let me just do a quick recap about what we looked at yesterday. Yesterday, we talked about two of the core reasons. Now, there are many reasons, right? But we talked about two of the core or foundational reasons why people become afraid when it has to do with public speaking, when they're speaking in public. Why people become afraid leading up to the presentation as well as during the presentation, okay? And what are some things that happen to people when they become nervous and anxious? What are things that happen? You can go ahead and answer that by typing in your responses. What happens, or what has happened to you, or what do you think happens when people become nervous and anxious before the presentation as well as during the presentations? What are some things that's happened to you? Go ahead and respond to me. I'll just give you a few seconds. You know, you got a presentation that's coming up. How do you start to feel? What do you start to think about? What do you start to do? Or you're participating, you're doing, conducting, presenting. What are some things that happen to you? Let me just hear what you have to say. I'll give you just a few seconds. You forget what you're going to say. Yeah. That can happen, especially when you're doing something live, right? You get a mental block, boom, right? You just, okay, where do I go from here? What do I say? Yeah, sometimes you can just go completely blank. Right then, you've practiced, you've done everything that you need to do to prepare, right? But then all of a sudden you go blank, you get a block. What are some other things that happen to people as a result of fear of public speaking or just the experience of speaking live? What are some things that happen? I'll let you go ahead and continue to share with me as I move forward. So someone asks, why does the block happen? That's a good question. I'm going to answer that in just a minute. I'm going to answer that in just a minute. So try to remind me. If I forget, please remind me. Why does that happen? So two of the reasons that we talked about as to why people become afraid. These are just two reasons, but they're two of the core reasons. One we talked about yesterday. In fact, we mentioned both of them. But what I wanted to do today is to review them, mention them again, but then I want to give you a solution to the first one. Right? I don't just want to tell you what they are, I want to give you a solution. So the first one, I don't know if anyone was here, but the first one was anticipation. And it's really negative anticipation. So here's what I mean. You find out that you have a presentation. What's the first thing you begin to do? You automatically begin to think about it, right? Oh, I have this presentation coming up. You begin to anticipate it. Someone says, I always, all right, I'm going to use the word, I always have to poop. You know, yeah, things do happen to our bowels, right, when we have to do a presentation. And often before I have to do a presentation, I have to use the bathroom as well. So, and I've been doing this for years. Right, I've been doing this for years. It's just one of the things that happens, and it's okay. It's okay as long as you don't use the bathroom during your presentation or in the presentation, right? Shaky voice, yes, absolutely. Thank you. So, one of the things that begins to happen is what we call negative anticipation. People begin to think negatively about the upcoming presentation. They start to worry about it. Right? And I put yesterday's Periscope on YouTube, and I'll try to tell you how to find it. I'll try to make it easier for you to find it, but you can find it there so that you can review that, because I don't want to go too deep into it. But you begin to think negatively about the presentation. You begin to worry about it. You begin to think about what happened the last time. You begin to think about, what if I mess up this time? What if I don't hit the right points? And what if I get stuck or go blank or so? So you begin to worry about it. Negative anticipation. So here's the point that I want to make about that. When you know you have a presentation coming up, you are going to anticipate it. You are going to think about it. The only question is, watch this, the only question is, how? Are you going to anticipate it negatively or positively? Are you going to be reactive or proactive in how you listen to this and how you think about that presentation? Because the way you think about it is going to frame, it's going to impact how you prepare for it, and more importantly, how you perform, right? How you perform. Because if you're thinking about it negatively, you're literally creating the circumstances around which and in which you're going to find yourself when you do the presentation, right? You're creating those circumstances. You're going to create the very thing that you don't want. Negative anticipation is one of those things that causes people, right, to become very anxious and nervous. The second thing, which we're going to touch on just a little bit, but I want to save it for the next scope, and that is preoccupation, right? Preoccupation. Often people become preoccupied. They become preoccupied with what other people are thinking rather than being occupied or thinking clearly about what it is that they have to say, what they're going to communicate. So preoccupation, and this is a deep one now, preoccupation, and they're not the same. That is, negative anticipation and preoccupation are, while they're related, they're not the same, and you deal with them a little differently. Okay? So let's talk about how to deal with negative anticipation. What's the strategy to deal with negative anticipation? The strategy is to reframe, right? Here's one of the strategies. I'll give you a couple. Reframe how you are thinking about or reframe the presentation itself. Here's what I mean when I say reframe. When you're thinking about the presentation, often you can think like, oh man, okay, I got this speech or presentation coming up and I know I'm not going to do well. And so, all right, so you're thinking about it negatively. Well, you reframe it and you also change your language around it. By reframing, I mean instead of saying, oh, I got this presentation coming up, I know I'm going to mess up, you say, wow, I'm very excited about this presentation. So instead of saying, I'm nervous, I'm anxious, oh my goodness, you say, you know what, I'm very excited about this upcoming presentation. Now, somebody may think, oh, that's a bunch of, psychobabble or hypnosis, stuff like that. That doesn't really work. I've tried it before. When you use that in combination with some other strategies that I'll be sharing with you, it absolutely does work. Because your language, what you say, and what you say aloud, and what you say to yourself, and what you think, definitely impacts how you perform. So yes, someone just joined Toastmasters. In fact, I recommend all of my clients at a certain point to join Toastmasters, absolutely. So thank you for that. So one of the things that Toastmasters does is it helps you to create, hopefully, more positive and constructive speaking experiences. It also helps you learn to reframe your upcoming speaking experiences. So we said that one strategy is to reframe the upcoming speaking engagement or situation or presentation. So rather than thinking to yourself or saying aloud, I'm anxious, I'm worried, you want to think and say, I am excited. Why? Because the feelings of being excited are very similar to those feelings of being anxious and nervous, right? Often when we get very excited about something, our breathing gets a little short, sometimes we get a little tense, sometimes we begin to sweat. We're very excited about something. If you're very, very excited, all these things can happen. Maybe you have to go to the bathroom. So many of the feelings are the same, and you can check the science on that. So when you tell yourself, when you reframe the event, you put a different frame on it, you take the anxiousness and anxiety frame off, and you put a new frame on that says, you know what, I'm actually very excited about this presentation. I can't wait to do this presentation. Now, you might not go that far, but at least say I'm very excited about it. You would be surprised as to the big difference that one step can make towards helping you not worry about the upcoming presentation. Changing your language, reframing. What's another strategy that you can use when you're thinking about an upcoming presentation? Another strategy is, and we're talking about anticipating, is to begin thinking. Now, this one will take us into the next core reason, which is being preoccupied with the wrong thing. What I'm about to tell you now, this strategy has to do with not negatively anticipating, but it will lead us into the second one. And here it is. It is thinking about your audience, anticipating the needs. Watch this. This is so very powerful. Anticipating the needs of your audience. And I'm going to spend some more time on this in the next scope, because this is the reason that you're doing what you're doing. For your audience, right? You want to communicate something to your audience. Doesn't matter. You could be communicating numbers. You can be communicating something about your passion, an idea. And if you want to impact your audience, if you want to transform their thinking and their actions, again, it doesn't matter if you're an accountant, if you're a teacher, if you're an engineer, right? Whatever it is, when you go to present information, you're not just doing it for your health. You're doing it because your audience needs to learn something. They need to hear something from you. They need to know what you're doing, or they need to hear something from you that's going to transform their actions. It's going to impact them or persuade them in some way. So what you want to do is you want to anticipate who your audience is and what their needs are. What are the needs of my audience? Now let me take this a step forward. You want to think about, you want to anticipate, what questions does my audience have? What are their questions, and how can I answer those questions? Every time you and I present, we are actually answering someone's question. We're answering a question, whether you think about it like that or not. And I go much deeper into this in my courses and in a new course that I'm developing just for this platform. But anticipate the questions of your audience. Think about your audience. You've probably heard this before. So who's in my audience? What are their needs? What are their struggles? What are the things that they're thinking about? What are the questions that they have about this subject? How can I answer those questions? So guess what? If you are thinking about your audience, if you really care about your audience, then what you will begin to do is, instead of worrying about your performance, instead of worrying about messing up and am I going to get stuck and am I going to go blank and, well, this is what happened last, instead of thinking all that stuff, you spend the same time and energy thinking about your audience. Well, who's my audience and what questions do they have and how can I serve them and how can I impact? And guess what? You won't have, listen to this, you won't have the time or energy to be worrying about that other stuff. You simply won't. And yes, it doesn't mean that your mind won't go there, because it's very natural that it would, but all you have to do is shift it back to your audience. So every time your mind goes over to starting to worry, that is negatively anticipate, what do? Well, one of the things that you do is you reframe it by changing your language. Number two, you shift it back over to anticipating the needs of your audience. And you keep doing it until, guess what? You begin to develop a habit of focusing on the needs of your audience. It's a habit. It's a habit. And you can create new habits when it comes to preparing and presenting. Okay? So, we discussed 2 strategies that you can use immediately. I had a young lady tell me that she used these strategies. She had a couple of presentations like the next day, and she just did a great job, whereas before she used to freeze up and so forth. So we talked about 2 strategies in this scope. The first one has to do with what? It starts with an R. Go ahead and type it in for me, and then I'm going to answer some questions. We talked about 2 strategies to prevent you from negatively anticipating your presentations. One strategy started with an R, and the other strategy started with a what? Actually an A. So what was the first strategy? I just want to make sure that you got that first strategy. Who can tell me what it was? Who can tell me what the first strategy was? It was reframing. Yes, exactly. Reframing how you think about, how you anticipate your presentation. You're reframing it. Instead of saying, I'm anxious and I'm worried, you say, I'm excited about the presentation. You just keep saying it. I'm excited about it. You reframe. The second strategy was what? The second strategy is to anticipate the needs of your audience, to think about your audience. Anticipate the needs of your audience. You won't have the time and energy to be anticipating or negatively anticipating or worrying about your performance. All right, in our next scope, our next Periscope, we're going to jump into preoccupation. This has more to do with what happens when you're actually presenting, right? What you're being preoccupied. And you'll see how these 2 bridge together, how they're very, very similar, but they're a little different. Preoccupation. When people become preoccupied with things that they shouldn't be preoccupied with, they can't get into that flow. They can't get into that rhythm. Notice how I'm speaking right now. It's not perfect, right? I'm not trying to speak perfectly. But at the same time, I'm not getting lost. I'm not stuttering and stammering over my words. And yes, I've been doing this for a while, but I've created a habit. And the habit that I've created in speaking, and speaking without notes and in being very clear and organized, is a habit that you can develop as well. And these are some of the things that will help you develop that habit and prevent you from getting off track and getting cloudy and so forth. Right? These are a couple. So we're going to talk about that preoccupation in the next scope. So, does anyone have any questions or comments for me? Does anyone have any questions or comments? I want to thank those of you who have joined me today live and those who popped in and popped out. Really enjoyed having you and seeing your comments. A couple of persons mentioned Toastmasters a couple of times. Toastmasters is excellent. It's an excellent tool. It's an excellent platform for helping you. Okay, so I want to encourage you to tune in to these and visit my website. I'm going to put something on my website to direct you to a special page that's just going to have to do with these scopes. I mentioned to you in the beginning that I was preparing something very special, and it's going to have to do with how to conquer your fear, right, of public speaking, but how to present more clearly and confidently using Periscope, right? Using Periscope. Even if your goal is not to, create a whole bunch of Periscopes just to be on Periscope. But if you have to do live presentations, okay, someone has a question, what is your strategy for practicing? All right, help me remind me of that, but I don't want to lose my train right now. So if you have to do live presentations for work or for school, Periscope can be a great tool for you. So I'm developing a course that will help you overcome your fear of public speaking using Periscope. Prepare for your presentations, your live presentations, whether they're on Periscope or off. Prepare for them using Periscope. Also, how to practice your presentations using what? Using Periscope. And how to present, that is how to give live presentations, guess what? Guess where? On Periscope. It's a good platform for you to do all of those things so that when you go live at work, you're more prepared, okay? You're more prepared. So someone says, what are some strategies for practicing? Well, what I'm going to do is I want to save that. I have an entire course for that. That's an entire course. And so I really don't want to go into details into the practicing because we'll touch on that later in some other Periscopes. But also that's going to be in this course, right? But I will give you some tips and some strategies in future Periscopes. But that is a great question, strategies for practicing. And there is a systematic way that you can practice for your presentations so that it's in there. And you don't want to memorize, you want to internalize the information, right? You want to internalize it so that you can speak to it, so that you can kind of present in a conversational manner. There's a way to prepare and practice for that, so we'll talk about that. Are there any other questions or comments? Some of which I'll answer in other Periscopes and some of which I may be able to answer now. Definitely use these two strategies for my next speech. Absolutely. They will help you. They will help you, right? Anything else? Any other questions or comments? I'm going to try to continue this tomorrow. I said I would do it once a week, but I just got so excited about it. It was so much fun. I decided to do one today, probably do one tomorrow. But again, I am going to record these so that if you don't catch it or if the time is different, and again, I will try to be consistent at a certain point. But thank you very much. Any other questions or comments before we wrap it up? I'm going to go ahead and download this video and get it up on YouTube. Visit my website, pro90d.com, pro90d.com. Someone said, I love what you said about memorizing versus internalizing. Yes, put them on YouTube. Yes, my last one was on YouTube, and this one will be, in fact, they'll all be on YouTube. And I'm going to try to tag it. If you type in something like Michael Williams Periscope, okay, I'm going to try to put that in the title and in the tags, Michael Williams Periscopes, and you should be able to find it. I don't know if you'll find the first one because I don't think I tagged it like that, but I will tag the future ones. Michael Williams Periscope. But visit my website, pro90d.com. That website is focused primarily, well, not primarily, but it's focused for people that struggle with stuttering, but also fear of public speaking. It's the same strategy, same tools, same techniques. Trust me, it's the same stuff. So even though you might see stuttering and say, oh, well, I don't stutter, I don't have a stuttering problem, the strategies and the tools and the techniques are the same. It's just going to take you less time to get to where you want to go than a person that struggles with stuttering. So go to that website, check it out. I'm going to have some special stuff there that will direct you to a special page for this. I can find it if I follow you on YouTube. Yes, you absolutely can. So remember, I'm going to try to tag these Periscopes on YouTube with Michael Williams Periscope, and you'll be able to eventually find that in there, but I'll put this on there. Okay, if you don't have anything else, I'm going to get working to download this and upload this, and I look forward to seeing you in the next Periscope as we jump into this next part, which is preoccupation. This is what happens when, like right now, I'm presenting live to you. If I were preoccupied, I wouldn't be able to do this, and that's what we're going to talk about in the next Periscope. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for thanking me, and thank you, and I'll see you all in the next Periscope. Thanks, looking forward to the next one. Thank you so much, all of you that kind of stuck with me. Thank you for the hearts. Thank you, Stephanie. And again, really having fun here. You guys make this a lot of fun. I got some great stuff coming up for you. It really works. I'm just going to say this little thing and then I'm going to jump off. I don't talk about stuff that doesn't work, that's not transformational. I just don't do it. I can't do it. I can't afford to do it. Remember, I work with people who have from severe to mild stuttering challenges, right? These are professionals. Okay? These are sharp, smart people, business owners, doctors, lawyers, engineers. And sometimes they've grown up with stuttering. Sometimes they just have a problem when it comes to speaking in public. It could be fear that brings that on. And I have an online coaching business. I coach people literally from around the world. I've been to India. I've been invited to go to India twice, stayed for 2 months. So what I do has to work. It has to be transformational. You actually have to do it, not just once. You have to, but it works, because if it didn't work, I wouldn't be in business, right? I can't just give people tips for stuttering and then expect that. No, what I do transforms your thoughts, transforms your beliefs, transforms how you speak. It has to work, or else I can't stay in business. So if you follow me, and if you trust me, and if you actually do the things that I'm sharing with you, and again, you can't just do them once, you got to do them continuously. It's all about habit. You're going to find that they work as well, okay? Because that's the only kind of stuff that I'm going to give you. So we'll see you probably tomorrow. I don't know what time, but I'll definitely see you tomorrow. And thank you very much for joining me. This is Michael Williams. Do visit my website, pro90d.com, pro90d.com. We'll see you next time.